On this episode of Who Dem.
Do you speak English? And the girl's like, yeah, I do. She was from New Jersey.
If you could go back to yourself at my age, what would be your piece of advice? I didn't know you got married in the Vatican.
I did.
What is that experience like? I got to go to the National Cathedral for the first time. My parents were over here for the weekend, and I got to go to the National Cathedral, and I was just in awe. And my mom made this point. She was like, if you think this is beautiful, imagine what the Vatican's like. Yeah. What's the Vatican like?
Well, I'd say it's one of the places that I think everybody should go to, right? Whether you're Catholic or not, it is, St. Peter's Basilica, which is, the big church that you always see where the Pope is doing Mass, and it's the altar is over the burial ground of St. Peter. But it's incredible to be there. Right now, we didn't get married like right there at the altar where you see the Pope doing Mass. Yeah. We were married inside the Basilica, but they do weddings in this chapel. Now you go into St. Peter's Basilica, and all along there's different chapels all along the sides of, in the other little chapels in this one huge mega church. But in the chapel of the choir, they do weddings on Tuesdays. So we got married on a Tuesday. It was July 5th, the day after the 4th of July. That's kind of where we did it. It was a nice little ceremony. We got some great pics out of it. Even there, you look in this little chapel that it's there. It looks magnificent and grandiose. It was pretty incredible, right? And then we were the last wedding of the day. So we got to spend a little extra time because it was, in a way, it was almost kind of like going to Vegas, right? Where you go, they kind of rush you in, right? It's like, okay, next, they do one wedding and then it's like, okay, 10 minutes later, okay, next. But we were the last one of the day. So we got to spend a little bit more time taking pictures in there. And then, when we walked out of the little chapel there, it was like everybody was taking pictures of us like we were celebrities and stuff. But it was kind of cool, and we got a lot of good wedding pictures around Rome, and it was a pretty incredible experience.
How do you go about that? Do you have to reserve it months in advance, or is it just one of those situations where you can kind of just go in and they'll first come first serve?
No, so you have to. So it is a Catholic church, right? So you have to do everything all the steps that you are required to do, like at your local diocese, you have to go through, right? So we had to do the wedding encounter. We had to go to his class. We had to sit down with the priest. Our priest had to write a letter, kind of saying that we're good, good people, and that they did it. And then it went to the diocese, and they put their stamp of approval on it, and then it gets sent to the American Church in Rome, and they're the ones who kind of present it to, Vatican City to say hey, these people would like to get married here. And that's kind of what it was. Now, what happened to us is so you have to send a letter in the request, right? And you can't do it no more than 6 months in advance. And you have to give them 3 dates. Say, okay, we can do it this day, or that day. So, we did it and gave them, so we had 6 months out. I think we did it in January. We asked for dates in July. And what happened was the Pope died. So Pope John Paul II, I guess now Pope John Paul the Great, died. And so that kind of set everything on pause, right? And we're like, oh my God, how long is this? It takes forever. The Pope, we may have to send another letter because our 6 months is going to expire. But they actually knocked it out pretty quick, right? So they chose a new pope, and then everything started back on, and then we were able to get our date selected July 5th, which we kind of chose around the holiday because we knew people would have time off and everything like that around the holiday, so they came.
Sure, yeah. Plus, it's symbolic, right? The day after the 4th of July, you're getting married.
Kind of makes it a little harder to forget.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's a good strategy there. I got to write that one down. Got to do it around a holiday so that I don't forget. I'm terrible with dates, so I'll definitely make sure to remember that. Yeah, no, I have not gotten the opportunity to go to Rome at all, but I've heard so many great things about it. Would you say that that's one of your favorite places that you've been to, the Vatican, or where does that rank?
Well, I think the city of Rome is definitely one of my favorite places to go to, right, and to visit. And I've actually been there numerous times, even when I was in the Navy. Um, I was stationed out in the Mediterranean. I had to go to Naples for training, but I had a weekend, so I took the weekend and went to Rome. When I was a midshipman doing my summer cruise, me and two other guys got on the train from Naples and we went to Rome. Um, but it is definitely an international city with a lot of great art and things to see. If you go I think it's the last Sunday of every month, or you can actually get in the museums free,
Mm.
the Vatican museums. But some of the greatest art pieces and artwork. My favorite painting in the world is there, School of Athens, painted by Raphael. And but of course, and then the Sistine Chapel there, which is just I mean, to see that, and to think that somebody painted all of that on their back is just remarkable at that achievement, that somebody was able to do that.
Yeah, no, I remember, the time that I got to go to Europe my freshman summer. Seeing the rest of Europe was just obviously so impressive.
Hmm.
But a lot of it got torn down because of the First World War and the Second World War. But I had the opportunity to go to Prague and
Hmm.
seeing like the history there and how old the buildings were and how they're still standing up, and just like imagining how like if we can do the architecture that we can do today. We have so many tools and
Yeah.
so many people, and it's coordinated, and we're very I get not purposeful, but scientific. There's a lot more developments, technological developments, that have helped us be able to do the things that we do today. Building something like that back then just blows my mind every single time, whether it's the pyramids or whether it's the castles, or whether they're chapels. It's just impressive to think that at one point in history we were able to do this without like having the Measure app on our iPhone.
Oh my God, you see some of those old things, right? Like the pyramids, and you're like, how the hell did they move these? These big pieces of stone that weighed like tons, with with no machinery.
Yeah.
It's just no trucks, no vehicles. It's just, I mean, insane to think that how they did that. It's just incredible. Prague was actually one of the first. It's a Eastern. It's Prague. Was Czechoslovakia, Eastern Europe. Now it's the Czech Republic, but that was kind of one of the first cities that kind of started to break away and kind of not they stopped ignoring the Soviet Union and started to become very modern and very I don't want to say Americanized, but Westernized, where there was actually a lot of Americans moving there for a while. Um, but I actually went there too, right back when I was in the Navy in the late '90s, and I was just kind of surprised how uh, like you said, right? All these old buildings, and you go to that center square where they have the big clock, and there's this all this stuff. But then you go, and then you see, oh, they got a Gap, and there's a Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
you know? But it
Yeah.
was kind of like very Americanized. It was becoming that way too. And I remember um, I was looking for something, and I went up to this girl, and in a typical American fashion, um, you know not knowing if they spoke English or not. So what do? I speak my English louder, like louder and slower. Like, do you speak English? And the girl's like, yeah, I do. She was from New Jersey. Yeah.
That's hilarious. I have one of my buddies when the same thing when we were on the trip. We would get so upset with him because he would just walk up to everyone just the slow and loud and just
Yeah.
like we can try speaking English to them first. If they don't understand that, then we can figure out a workaround. But no, it was definitely impressive to see the integration of like yes, a lot of I think Berlin was one of those cities too where it's like very 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 modern,
Hmm.
but it still has some traces of that old history.
Yeah.
You were talking about getting to experience this during your time in the Navy. I recently had my birthday, turned
Mhm.
21 last week.
Right.
I
Happy
wanted to
birthday.
ask. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I wanted to ask you, If you could go back to yourself at my age, what would be your
Hmm.
piece of advice? Or what would you tell yourself? Maybe not advice, but what would you tell yourself?
I think I would try and tell myself be a little bit more outgoing and
Mm,
not I think some people think it's kind of hard to believe, right? But because you're a politician and you got to go talk to people and do everything. But I'm an introvert at heart, right? It's not easy for me to go to like up and talk to people and kind of make small talk and kind of do this, that, and whatever, right? That's the things that you're expected to do as a politician, right? To connect. I always kind of have to force myself into that in order to do that. And in a sense, it kind of does make me uncomfortable at times. But I don't know. I guess I would tell myself, like, maybe not try to be a little bit more, so much of an introvert, try and get out there more, try and be, network more.
mm.
I'd wish I had done, like you said, you studied, have you studied abroad or you just said you wouldn't, you didn't study abroad? You
No. Yeah.
I wish I had done that. And I wish I had taken more opportunities to kind of go out and kind of do things, right? I mean, it sounds kind of cool. Yeah, I had all my summers. I got to go to Europe one summer as a midshipman as part of one of my cruises. The other two I spent in San Diego, which is fine, and I love San Diego, but not so exotic as far as like going to like Europe or anything. But I wish I don't know. Part of my problem was I already knew what I was going to do because I was on an ROTC scholarship. I already knew I was going into the Navy, so I knew I had a job afterwards.
Yeah.
Long
Yeah.
as I graduated, that I was going to be going into the Navy. So I guess in that sense, I didn't really kind of push myself to
Mm.
kind of go out and seek other experiences, right? I didn't. I'm like, why do I need to go study abroad? I wish I had taken that opportunity to go do that and go study abroad somewhere to learn another language. Um, I wish I had kind of maybe, it's the other crazy thing too, right? Um, I never went to the Hill to like go and like seek like, hey, with my, member of Congress, like, can I help out, right? Can I intern here? Which is kind of nuts when I kind of think about it that I didn't do that or kind of
I haven't done that, to be
yeah.
fair.
Well, it's a little bit more difficult nowadays, right? So
Sure.
now we pay our interns, and that's only been in process for about 6 years. So, before it was all volunteer. You could go intern, you could volunteer, and because they weren't paying anybody, they would just take, oh yeah, okay. So you could have an
Yeah.
office that had like 10 interns in it or something, right? Just there to kind of help out. But now you can't have it in the sense where you got, okay, we have these paid interns, and over here you're not getting paid at all.
I
So
see.
it just doesn't make it fair, and so it's not really kind of done anymore.
There's no more unpaid interns on the Capitol Hill? That makes sense.
No.
Makes sense. I feel like that's something that's very different about DC culture as well. Like, I always wanted to go into law,
Hmm.
and like looking at internships back home in Georgia, they're like, yeah, you're gonna come over here and you're gonna work for free, buddy. Like, no one's gonna be paying you to do it. I was fortunate where I interned. They did
Yeah.
actually pay $15 an hour, which was
Yeah.
wonderful. Being 16, 17, getting the opportunity to not only learn, but also, make a little bit of money for
Yeah.
myself. But a lot of internships, especially in the legal field, I feel like they're still stuck to the old, like, you come over here, you give us your time, and we'll pay you in exposure and experience. But it's interesting to see DC has changed.
Yeah, I mean, I still kind of think that can be valuable, right? To kind of go and to get that experience, and it is something that it is I call like a resume builder. But it's always nice to have a paid internship, right? Especially like when you got like underserved kids,
Yeah.
wanting to come to DC or kind of moving there. They can't do an unpaid internship like in DC. Like they need a place to live. They got to pay rent. They got to eat, and to just say like, oh, well, come here and just you'll figure it out, right? With no money, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of those things too, because my dad's he's like very much of the mentality of like, no, you go and, you work and you get whatever you're given. If that's just experience, that's opportunity, then that's,
Yeah.
what you take. And I had that mentality going into college too. And it wasn't until like I had the opportunity to recognize that like, oh, some people, if they don't get paid, like they literally just cannot actually do this internship.
Yeah.
They can't afford to live. They don't have the benefit of, their parents supporting them or whatnot, to be able to just go and work for free.
No, they're going to go and get a job doing something else where they can like, you just basically get paid, right? I knew friends who like went and worked on like shipping docks or something like that, right? Kind of loading boxes, loading trucks, or doing something that's not really related to their field of study. And it's great that you're doing that and you're making money and putting some money in your pocket, but it's at the same time, right? You're not somebody else is kind of doing this somewhere who's maybe has a family with means where they're able to kind of afford to send them to go do something, and they're gaining that valuable experience. That you're kind of and it just puts you further behind. Where they're kind of working in their field that they want to go into, and you're kind of doing something else that's not related to that because you just basically need to make some money.
Yeah, and you don't. I guess you don't notice it till like 10 years down the line when it's like, oh, okay, they've advanced to this position, and I've only gotten this far, even though we're in the same field and have the same degree or whatnot, went to the same school. But small things like that you don't really think about end up having a trickle down effect. I feel like.
Well, the thing, it creates opportunity, right? So when you're like applying for something and you have when you're getting ready to graduate from college and they look at your resume and you got internships that you have done this or you've done that, and then you got somebody else like a kid who kind of grew up in an environment where they didn't really have those opportunities that their parents were able to create for them. It's just like, oh, okay, yeah, I worked at Starbucks, last summer, where the other one's like, oh yeah, I interned at this law firm, right? When you kind of look at that when you're going to law school and you're putting that on your resume, your application, which one are they going to look at, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was curious. You mentioned that, when you were around my age, you knew that you wanted to go into, or that you were going to have a career in the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
Is that always what you wanted to do? Like, since you were young, did you have, I'm assuming apart from baseball player, I'm assuming you wanted to play baseball.
Yeah. It kind of was. And to be honest, too, the other thing, too, is I never really thought further beyond that, right, as to like what would come next. And I probably should have done a better job of planning that. But it was something that I always kind of thought of. Maybe I watched Top Gun too many times or whatever. But it was, I knew I would join the military, but I also knew the military would kind of give me, because like, again, right, nobody in my family got into college. My mom didn't graduate from high school. I kind of thought the Navy or the military, whatever branch it might be, would kind of give me that step forward where I could actually learn something, learn a job, kind of earn money for college that would allow me to kind of do something later on in life. I guess I kind of always saw it in my future as that's what was going to be next, because there was no 529 savings plan that my parents created to for me to go to college, and I just kind of knew it was going to be all on me, right? So
yeah, no. I mean that's I don't have the same situation with going to the Navy and whatnot, but it's interesting to hear that you were very cognizant of like the social mobility that going and joining the military would provide with you, because it was something similar with my family. Obviously, my parents didn't go to college. My dad barely graduated high school, and I do say barely because he always tells this funny story of like how he couldn't attend his high school graduation because he couldn't pay for the cap and gown, and so he very, very barely graduated. But I was always cognizant of the fact that like college was that for me and my family and my kids, and same thing with I'm in a fraternity here at GW, but like small things like that, like setting up the pathway for my children, like to have those networking opportunities that like I never really had, and like if they don't want to do it, that's fine, but knowing that those doors and opportunities like you're saying are available to them has been something that's huge for me. How have you felt like your past decisions have given your kids an opportunity to really shine.
I mean, my kids are like, I think from where I was at their age, I mean, they're like thriving and like way beyond like where I am. The opportunities that we're able to provide for them is just, it's just it's night and day, really, right? Like, you know, I know like later on in life, right, when my kids are gonna start thinking like as they go, right, that they went to, I mean, they're in summer camp right now. That's something I never got to go do. They did a 3 week camp earlier in the year where they kind of was done through John Hopkins, their Center for Talented Youth, right, which is an opportunity again that was another available to me. Um,
Yeah.
and so it is just kind of something that it's there's more opportunity for them to kind of do things. And look, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. You know, I know probably later in life when it comes to them and they need internships and stuff, I may be able to pick up the phone and kind of call somebody and say like, hey, my son is looking. One of my sons is looking for this or that. Can you? You
Yeah,
think
help them out.
you think you got room for them?
Sure.
And I think in a sense it is. I mean, it is unfair that some people, not everybody has that same opportunity to do that. But I know that's something that Dr. Vaquera there at the institute is kind of the Cisneros Institute has done. I think a lot with a lot of the students there, and really trying to kind of find opportunities for them to kind of do internships and things there that allow them to not only gain experience but put money in their pocket. And I know a lot of them have gone on in these internships and been able to go into jobs with the same companies that they've interned with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like that's, one term that's been popular with my generation, especially
Mm-hmm.
on TikTok, has been this concept of like nepotism
Mm-hmm.
and this critique of nepotism.
Yeah.
And I think that it's rooted in a bad place, because I think that anyone in the situation where, like, if I could give my kids an opportunity to go and do something, I'm
Yeah.
not thinking twice about it. I'm gonna pick up the phone faster than I picked up the phone to do anything else.
Yeah.
So I feel like the critiques of it are so, it should be an idea of like, how do we have more people have the opportunity to do this for their kids, as
Yeah.
opposed to like, how do we take this away from this person that can already do it?
I mean, there's a difference, I think, between, right, nothing wrong with creating opportunity, right? And I think that's what, to me, that's about what diversity and inclusion is all about, right? And why I've always been a big supporter of that. It's, giving these individuals an opportunity to go out and to prove themselves. The difference is, and where nepotism is, and I'll use a Democratic example, right?
Go
Is,
for it. Go for it.
you know, Robert Kennedy was the attorney general for his brother, right? And that was just because, I'm not going to say he was bad or this or that, right? But it was like his dad was like, hey, you're going to make your brother, you know,
Yeah.
you need to have some family close to you. Or you're going to make your brother attorney general, right? To me, okay, that's probably an extreme case of something like that, right? I think Donald Trump putting his daughter, in the first administration, right, making her a special advisor right there, which obviously no government experience, no qualifications or anything, into the administration is, a clear case of nepotism. That's different, right? Because that's just, that's not creating opportunity. That's giving somebody a job based on who they are,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
You know,
No, and
and-
even I was going to say, even with the case like with Kennedy, Kennedy went to law school. Like,
yeah,
the Trump children, literally their only qualification is being
yeah,
a Trump. Like, that's it. That's where it stops.
yeah, yeah.
And that's the other difference, right? It's about like giving opportunity to people who, when put in those positions, would likely excel if they had that opportunity presented to them, as opposed to like, let's just take some random Joe off the street,
Yeah.
and put them in this high ranking position.
It's one thing, right, to, like I said, in creating opportunities like at the lower level, right? Everything else as you kind of move up, you earn. You know, when Trump came into office the second time around, they got rid of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, C.Q. Brown, right? His opportunity to go into the Air Force and do that, right, started later, early on, and, kind of like, okay, here's your opportunity, the Air Force, to go. and to do what you can. But when he was in the Air Force, everything he did, he earned, right?
Mm.
Moving up the ranks. There was no, oh, well, let's give this guy an opportunity here to be a general. And,
Yeah.
that shit doesn't happen, right? It's like you earn it. If you get up that high, you've earned it. So yeah, that is not but they kind of, like Hexeth, Stephen Miller, they kind of want to pretend like, somehow that if you're a person of color or if you're a woman, that somehow you've stepped over some white male in order to get this position and you didn't really earn it.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. I don't know if you've seen them walking around in Union Station yesterday, but like for the first time, it was really interesting to watch Stephen Miller attack white people. He was like, "Oh, there's these old white hippies that need to go away, and black residents in D.C. are under the largest threat of crime, and for so long we haven't protected black residents. It's these white hippies' fault." And I was like, "Wow, Stephen Miller, look at that. Would not have expected that from you."
Yeah, he's protecting all the black residents in D.C. and Georgetown, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. No,
Mhm.
and I heard Rep Oye say this actually too, and I hadn't really thought about it like that. We always make fun of Trump, obviously, bankruptcies, casino, this, that, the other. We can go on and on and on.
Mhm.
Steaks, phone, cologne, shoes. It sounds like a song that we could just continue to sing.
Mhm.
He's failed forwards. And he's one of those cases where, like, if you talk about like actual, like, not just the people around him, it's easy to point at Hegseth or Stephen Miller or his children and be like, look, these people don't deserve to be in this position. He's someone that like doesn't have the quality. He is a DEI hire in the most
Yeah.
literal, in how they say the term DEI. I think it's been really funny to watch this be exemplified by Gavin Newsom. I don't know if you've been following
Yeah.
all of his social media posts.
He's been talking or posting like Trump, and it just, I mean, it's ridiculous from Trump, but to hear it from somebody else, it does kind of, they were saying it kind of makes you, okay, this is he's imitating Trump, and this is actually what we're getting, right? And like how ridiculous it sounds.
Yeah, yeah. I've watched Fox News. There was this clip. I cannot remember her name for the life of me. Max, if you could try to find this. But there was this clip of this Fox News host like reacting to Gavin Newsom's tweets, and she was like, this is just so unbecoming. This is just if I was Gavin Newsom's wife right now, I would be telling him to put down the phone because he's a governor and he has a big job, but if he wants an even bigger job, he's gonna have to start acting more serious. And
Yeah.
it's just like the plane flew right over her head. The joke is just she doesn't get it, and it's so
Yeah.
funny to see them. Who was it? It was Dana Perino. She had this huge. If you could send that to Max so that we could get it pulled up. She had this huge reaction. But what have you been following in terms of the Gavin Newsom tweets? Do you have a favorite so far that you can remember off the top of your head?
You know, I won't. So this is what I'll talk about, right? It's we're in the car the other day, and I'm driving, and my wife is like to my right, the kids are in the back, and all of a sudden, my wife just like starts like laughing,
Sure.
laughing, and I'm like, what are you laughing about? Like, what's so funny? And she's like, Gavin Newsom, and it's like he just keeps like trolling Trump, like all weekend he's been trolling Trump and just kind of, imitating him and doing, so it's. But that's just kind of like how it is, right? It's like, and people, like you said, like they don't even realize what's going on. Some of them, like the hardcore Trumpers, like, oh my God, who talks like this? Well, the fucking guy you keep supporting. Like that.
Literally, you have
Yeah,
retweets on your page, and they all sound like this because
yeah,
they're Trump's posts.
yeah,
It's been no, and the other thing too. So this is the far right online has been particularly interesting to watch with this Gavin Newsom thing. We've mentioned him a couple times. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. I've said that I don't like to platform him because I followed him since like 2016 when he was, 16 years old and doing a lot of Nazi propaganda, and he still does. But Nick Fuentes has become a popular,
yeah,
voice now in the conservative space.
yeah,
But it's been funny to watch him now criticize JD Vance because JD Vance has an Indian wife and he has children that are brown.
right,
And he has been posting pictures of Gavin Newsom and his family and then pictures of J.D. Vance and his family, and saying like which one represents America first. And it's like the horseshoe has just come all the way around to where now Republicans are like, you know what? We like Gavin Newsom.
Well, I think if they're looking for that, right, he's got the blonde wife, the young kids, I think, who have blonde hair or whatever. And it is, I guess if that's what they're looking for, right, then yeah, that you could put the picture on there, model American family. But look, that's their image, right? To me, America's, the most diverse country in the world. It is about diversity. It is about people of different color. And, I think my family, or even J.D. Vance's family, right, is just as much, an integrated family is just as much the image of America, as one that's, all white and blonde hair and blue eyed.
Yeah. It's just so. Nick Fuentes in and of himself is just such an interesting character because, he's just.
I mean, how can you have a last name like Fuentes and be a white supremacist, right?
Because your ideology is broken.
Yeah. Like what is like, what happened to you in your life, right? Where you don't even respect like your heritage or your name or anything. And I think this guy, didn't he try to deny there's something that he wasn't like Latino?
Yeah.
Kind of reading like a while ago.
Yeah. He does the like, oh well, I'm white and it's just the last name or whatever.
I'm Spanish.
Yes, I'm Spanish,
European.
exactly. I'm a white Hispanic. Yes.
Yeah.
There was a clip of him like saying exactly what you're saying, where it's like, you know what? I don't understand. If Gavin Newsom, he's handsome, he's a white man. Look at him, he's Aryan clearly. So what if he's a Democrat? So what? If you claim to be a white nationalist, but you can't support Gavin Newsom, then are you really a white nationalist? And like my head just started throbbing and just like trying to make, the circle or the square fit in the circle. It's wild to, and again, it goes with the jokes going over their head as well.
Yeah.
It's they don't understand that like they don't understand almost.
Yeah. That's kind of great. Is he really like doing pro Gavin stuff like that? Not just about how they look and how this is the
let's pull it up.
This is how a white family should look, or an American family should look, but he's actually like, hey, support Gavin Newsom. Wow.
Yes. Here, we actually can pull this one up immediately.
My name's Governor Gavin Newsom.
Aryan. Look at this
I can't hear the
Aryan.
audio.
From the
Can you hear
great
this,
state
Patrick Bateman.
of Nancy
Oh, there you go.
Pelosi. I come from a state like our nation of dreamers, of doers, of entrepreneurs, of innovators that prides itself on being on the leading and cutting edge of new
That's
ideas.
bone.
California is the most diverse state in the world's most diverse democracy.
Chad Gavin
And
Newsom.
We pride ourselves on our ability to live together and advance together and prosper together across every conceivable and imaginable difference. But the thing we pride ourselves most on is that we believe the future.
If you
happens
don't
in
like Gavin
California
Newsom,
first.
you're kind of like gay. I just don't know what to tell you. Like, if you look at a handsome, sociopathic, tall white man who like clearly has contempt for like those around him, and you don't like him because he's a Democrat, but he's a Democrat. Like, there's something wrong with you. I don't know what else to say. But he's not a Republican.
Criminal justice, racial
He may be
justice,
tall,
economic
white,
justice,
handsome,
social
sociopathic with a
justice.
beautiful
I
white
saw
family
that
and
star
rich.
get
But he's not a
even brighter
Republican. Like,
as Attorney
I
General
don't know what to tell you. Like, you're
as the United
retarded.
States Senator,
You are
and as
gay.
Vice
I don't know what to
President of the
say.
United States of America.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, but he's a
Kamala
Democrat.
Harris
Okay, and
has always done
And?
the right
We
thing.
can
You know,
get it
people
there.
say they're like
We
white
wanna- Okay,
nationalists.
we got 5 seconds left. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even the governor, I don't think would tell you like, don't, really, you're going to vote for me because of the way I look?
No, it's also the insult, right? Obviously, he's calling people gay,
Yeah.
and then he's like, he's handsome, and he just keeps hitting this point that like he's handsome, he's a really good-looking guy, and
if
like
you
if you
don't
don't
think
think
he
so,
is, you must be gay. Yeah, right.
It's just everything from the ideology of hatred to like his conservative ideology. It just goes full circle, and I don't know. I think watching them get so far, because his whole contention with Donald Trump now has been that like Trump isn't far right enough, and like it's like what more could you do? And I guess it's like come to a point where like you're so far right that you start like believing in Democratic, because this is from the National Convention. So this is even before Gavin Newsom started doing all of his things.
Yeah.
So now that he's like doing all of this, like, trolling on Twitter and whatnot, Nick Fuentes has become an even bigger fan of him. So it's just so interesting. There was this guy named Jimmy Dore, who was a very popular leftist commentator. And back in 2016, 2017, he started kind of doing something similar to Nick Fuentes, where he started hating on like leftists. And he was like, this leftist isn't leftist enough. And this past election, it came to the conclusion that like he said that Trump is a better option than Kamala Harris. And it just seems like we're kind of seeing this path start to happen with some conservative people as well, where they're starting to backtrack. Now, obviously, hopefully they're not listening to Nick Fuentes, but if that's, if what Trump is doing right now is ostracizing conservatives so much, what does that mean for like 4 years from now? Who are we going to be bringing into the Democratic tent? Because I think there's huge potential. Again, don't like Nick Fuentes, and I don't think that he should be platformed, but for more rational human beings who can see the contradictions, do you think there's potential to actually bring them back from that far right side of the tent?
I mean, I can't even comprehend this, to be honest with you. I don't. I mean, if you don't think Donald Trump is far right enough, but yet you're going to support this guy, Gavin Newsom, because he fits your ideal image of what you think, this, an American should look like and what his family should look like. But his policies, aren't going to be aligned with you. I mean, I don't even know what to think there, right? Like how,
I think
how is the opposite? If you want an authoritarian dictator and that's who you're kind of pushing for and what you want Trump to become, that's not going to be Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, I think the thing with them, and it's not just like with them referring to like Nick Fuentes and like the weirdos online, but like also with the weirdos in the White House, like with JD Vance and Stephen Miller. Like I said this a couple episodes ago, they're performative with the intent of being provocative.
Yeah.
My generation, we call it trolling. They're just trolls. And ultimately like what they want to do is they just want to piss people off.
Yeah.
And so now I think that, now that Republicans are in power and they're now seen as like the mainstream, they're just resorting to like, okay, who's now causing the most chaos online, and I'm going to go support them.
Well, it's kind of like the thing, right, that we've, with Republicans like in charge now. I mean, you had people like Matt Gaetz, like, others. There are several reasons why Matt Gaetz left, right? But I think one of them having to be with, it is a lot easier to be in the minority and to complain than to actually have to be in the majority and lead, right? And he is not a leader. He is a provocateur, to call people out, to kind of, right? And he kind of saw like even when they were in the lead, right? He still needed to do that. So he went after his own leader of his party, Kevin McCarthy. Just because that is his nature, and there's people like that, even in government, right? They don't know how to lead. They don't want to lead. They just want to be able to call people out and to cause chaos. And to them, that is, a more comfortable position to be in than it is actually having to lead and to actually get things done.
Time for a quick message from our sponsors. This episode of Who Dem is brought to you by Elect Dems Now. We all know that podcasts are the future. They give us the chance to connect with our elected officials like never before. That's why Elect Dems Now is committed to helping voters engage with the people who represent us. Supporting organizations that bring us closer to our elected officials is crucial to advancing and advocating for the change we want to see. Whether it's $5 or $50, every donation to Elect Dems Now helps shape our future and ensures a country we can all be proud of. Your support sends a clear message to candidates and elected officials. Connecting with you means connecting with America. To contribute and make a difference, visit electemsnow.org today. Your donation helps build a world where we are all connected. Paid for by Electems Now, electemsnow.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. It proves that it's harder to lead. And a lot of these people, they just want to complain. Max, he gives me this great quote where it's like, if you're just going to complain, but you're not going to offer, an alternative or give a good idea, then like, don't complain in the first place.
Right.
And I feel like that's just the problem with Republicans, especially like when I say Republicans too, just to be clear, I'm referring to the people in office, not like your everyday Joe.
Right.
Like the problem with the Republicans in office is that they don't want to lead. They want to tweet and get a bunch of retweets and post on TikTok and get a bunch of likes.
Yeah.
They want to be seen as popular and as provocateurs. But with that said, I wanted to ask you here while we're wrapping up, do you have anything that you're following or any events that you have going on this week that you would want the audience to know about?
I'm just going to tell like my Southern California people, right? It's going to be hot, stay cool. And actually in the 31st district, there's like several cities, St. Demas, West Covina, some of the other cities out there are actually having they're setting up cooling centers. Some of that's starting, I think, this either today, tomorrow. If you would think in this day and age, right, everybody would have it, but some people still don't have air conditioning in their house. But if you need to get out of the heat, you need a place to kind of go cool down, go to one of these cooling centers and get out of the heat for a while, get the cool air, just do what you can, go see a movie. That's what my wife, when my wife and I first got married, we lived, we were in the San Gabriel Valley where we kind of live now. And we didn't have we had one little air conditioner thing there we had two. We had one in the bedroom and one in the living room. No, central air going throughout the house. But when it got too hot sometimes, she'd just be like, I'm going to a movie. No matter what the movie was, how bad the reviews were, it was just like, okay, it's starting in like 15 minutes. I'm going to go see it. That way I can be like cool.
Yeah.
Like a Diet Coke or whatever to drink to kind of cool me down.
There you go. Smart idea. Be resourceful.
Yeah, but get out of the heat. Go to one of these cooling centers. We're going to stop by a couple of them tomorrow, just to kind of go and visit and say hello to people. But please stay cool. It is not something where you kind of need to be out there kind of overexerting yourself, when it's like 98 degrees outside. So please do that. The other thing we're doing this weekend is more of a family thing, but my sister's baby shower, we're going to go celebrate that as well.
Congratulations
to
your sister. I guess to you as well. You're going to be an uncle again?
Yeah, uncle again, but to my sister, yes. So that's kind of the family activity we got going on this weekend.
Awesome. And not sponsored, but go get some thrifty ice cream. Go get some ice cream. Keep yourself cool.
Yeah, definitely get some ice cream. Go and, like you said, stay cool. Grab whether it's a scoop of ice cream, a popsicle, or whatever, right? Enjoy yourself. I'm sure the ice cream trucks will be out in force this weekend.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, with that being said, thanks so much for joining us again, Gil.
All right. Thank you.